Mid-year changes that the Georgia Association of Realtors made to the contracts. Hi, everybody. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, and continuing on with the series of the changes that the Georgia Association of Realtors, or GAR, has made to their contract package coming out in July 1st, 2024. And today's video, we're going to cover changes they made to the seller brokerage agreement. So welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate your time. Please check out the other videos. I will link them in the description below. And please be sure to subscribe and hit the little icon that looks like a bell once you have subscribed. And that way you won't miss any of these videos when they come out on the changes that GAR has made to their contracts for mid-year 2024. I am recording this video at the beginning of June 2024. And agents, these contracts will be available to you as of July 1st. Many of the changes that the Georgia Association of Realtors has made is in response to the preliminary NAR settlement agreement. It is preliminary at this point in time, awaiting final court settlement and final approval by the Department of Justice. Nevertheless, thank you so much to the GAR Forms Committee for keeping all of us agents in Georgia out of trouble. So let's dive in. Again, I am doing a series of videos on all the changes. I'm doing individual videos on each change rather than one humongous long video. There are several changes. I am the broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors and the director of the Real Estate Academy of America. We are teaching several contracts classes where we will cover these changes, and these classes start as of next week. The classes are the 2024 GAR contract dissection, 2024 GAR contract changes, 2024 GAR brokerage agreements, and so forth. If you are unsure, please be sure to contact your instructor to find out and make sure that they will cover those changes. So, ready? Let's dive in to the changes that GAR has made to the seller brokerage agreement. I'm going to cover the exclusive seller brokerage agreement, which is GAR F101. But these are the same changes in the non-exclusive seller brokerage agreement, which is GAR F104. So I shall share my screen and we will dive in. All right. So again, this is the revision as of July 1st, 2024. You will know if a specific form has been revised or not by looking at the date at the bottom. If the form has been revised, it will say 7/1/24. If it was not revised, it will say 6/1/24. I'm sorry. It will say 1/1/24. All right. So the first revision that they have done is they talked about broker, where it references broker, it will also say seller's broker. So that's a minor change, but just to differentiate the seller's broker representing the seller in a client relationship versus the buyer's broker representing a buyer in a client relationship. While we're on that topic, both the exclusive seller brokerage engagement agreement and the non-exclusive seller brokerage engagement agreement both create the client relationship between the broker and the public seller. And that is outlined here by Georgia law referenced in the form itself. Now, as you would expect, The major change has to do with the compensation section. As I've mentioned in previous videos, throughout the GAR contract package, instead of using the term commission, anytime it uses commission, it will now say compensation. So here we go. The very first sentence, subparagraph for A4A, generally, this is new throughout any time throughout the entire contract package. Whenever GAR references commission, it now says compensation. And to stay in compliance with the NAR settlement, it does state compensation to brokers is negotiable and not set by state law. That is a direct mandate in the NAR settlement. It also goes on to say, however, this does not obligate individual licensees and brokerage firms to necessarily negotiate their compensation. Then the next section is compensation to the seller's broker. The seller, this is not new. Y'all are all used to seeing this. This has been in the seller brokerage agreements for years now here in Georgia. We are way ahead of the ball game, and thank you so much to the Georgia Association of Realtors, the people that sit on the GAR Forms Committee, and the legal attorneys that advise GAR. Seller agrees to pay seller broker the following compensation at the closing of any contract to sell, as that term is defined, of the property as follows. And that compensation to the seller's broker is expressed as a % of the sale price, a flat fee, or some other arrangement. Then it states optional compensation to the buyer's broker. And what it says here in this paragraph is the seller. This has been, you guys, this has been in our seller brokerage agreements. The wording has just been changed just a little bit. But again, here in Georgia for GAR, this has been in our agreements for several years now. But anyway, let me read it to you. The seller hereby approves of the following compensation, if any, being paid to the buyer's broker, either, here's where the change is, by the seller, in addition to the compensation being paid to the seller's broker, or the seller's broker out of the compensation being paid to the seller's broker, or seller and seller's broker as set forth in the other section below. So this is a little bit of a difference. And listing agents, you need to, when you're on a listing appointment with the seller, they agree to pay a total amount of commission to their broker, to the broker representing the seller. Then the seller approves. Either they are also going to pay more compensation directly to the buyer's broker, or they allow you, the seller's broker, to share what they are paying, what they're paying you up here, to share that with a buyer's broker. And that would be what we used to refer to as a co-op commission. That would be the second obligation. Or they are paying part to a buyer's broker, and they are asking the seller's broker to share part of their commission or compensation with the buyer's broker based on certain circumstances. So that is a little bit different verbiage there, and you would go through those options with the seller and fill out how that's being divvied up and who is paying. Then it goes on to say, if seller's offer of compensation to buyer's broker is conditional, specify the conditions here. And you're used to seeing that. It has been previously in several remarks in the MLS services, different issues. For example, I've seen it pretty commonly expressed. If buyer's agent is not present at first time of showing, then used to say co-op commission, but it would say buyer's compensation shall be X versus Y. that's just one example of what I have seen in the past, where it would be conditional and what that condition would be. For all purposes herein, the term buyer's broker shall mean the broker, including the broker representing the seller, if they are also working with or representing the buyer as a customer and client. That refers to the seller's broker having both sides of the deal. In other words, the seller's broker agent gets a sign call, for example, or some sort of call off of their marketing. That buyer is not working with another broker to represent them as a client or customer. And so therefore there was only one broker involved working with the seller, obviously as a client by virtue of signing the seller brokerage agreement, and working with the buyer either as a client by signing a buyer brokerage agreement if they're brokerage and if the parties agree to dual agency, or working with that buyer as a customer. So if you have both sides of a deal, that is also addressed here in this paragraph. And then paragraph D, that is the same, that has not been changed. Separate compensation on a lease if the seller ends up leasing the property, either leasing it outright or going under contract with an interim lease that we refer to as a lease purchase. Then there is a commission paid at the time of the consummation of the lease, and that is not different. Then we go on, and there is a, this is in paragraph, that was A, this is in paragraph B, further explanations to the corresponding paragraphs. This is just further explanation of what we've just gone over. And the new title to this paragraph is Compensation for Professional Services of Seller's Broker. Obligation to pay compensation to seller's broker. In the event that the seller enters into a contract to sell or lease, purchase, or lease with an option to purchase the property or any portion thereof during the term of this agreement with any buyer, the seller agrees to pay the seller's broker compensation at closing, regardless of whether the closing is during or after the term of this agreement, and if applicable, seller's broker's leasing compensation prior to the commencement of a lease purchase, or lease with option. Not a big change. The title of it has changed. Again, they took out the word commission and added in compensation. Now, the optional compensation to the buyer's broker, that does have new language, and it says, seller shall have no obligation to pay compensation to the buyer's broker. However, some sellers approve such compensation being offered and paid for by either the seller or the seller's broker. If the seller has agreed to pay compensation to the buyer's broker on any contract to sell, it shall be paid in full at closing. If the seller does not approve of paying compensation to the buyer's broker, then the buyer shall be solely responsible for paying the buyer's broker compensation. There is a brand new paragraph, paragraph CF, and this is to be in compliance with Georgia law. This paragraph also is in the buyer brokerage agreement and in the purchase and sale agreements. And again, it is just a disclosure of Georgia law, and it states, disclaimer regarding the sale of certain property. Seller acknowledges that based on Georgia Code 2-1-7 prohibits certain non-resident aliens, foreign persons, foreign companies, and U.S. companies owned by any of the above from buying or possessing certain land within a 10-mile radius of any military base, military installation, or military airport. That is new. Again, disclosure of Georgia law. Seller agrees to the rest of it, has been there, but it states, seller agrees to carefully read the entirety of the above reference code section. I'm sorry, this is still due, before contracting to sell such land. Seller should consult with legal counsel to fully understand the law. If the seller has not submitted written questions to the broker regarding the law to the broker prior to contracting to sell prohibited property, seller acknowledges that the seller fully understands to broker regarding the law to broker prior to contracting to sell prohibited property. Seller acknowledges that fully understands the limitations and requirements of the law, and broker shall have no responsibility for further doing the same. In such event, seller shall indemnify and hold broker harmless from any and all claims, causes of action, suits, and damages arising out of or relating to seller's failure to comply with the law. Violating the law can subject seller to civil and criminal penalties. The law also requires certain sellers and others to divest themselves of such property within certain time periods if they are now no longer legally able to purchase such property. Only other change is because compensation is addressed and agents are all affiliated licensees of their brokers. All contracts are written in the name of the brokers. All compensation is earned in the name of the broker. So if there is a contract where it addresses broker's compensation, but the broker isn't signing it, you, the agent, are signing it, which you get permission to do by your broker by virtue of your independent contractor agreement. However, you need to check with your broker and check your independent contractor agreement, and GAR is just confirming this. So this verbiage is also included in all of the brokerage agreements and in the purchase and sale agreement. And it states, if a licensee is signing this agreement on behalf of the broker, the licensee warrants that the licensee has full authority to sign this agreement and bind the broker hereto. And that is it. So as expected, the majority of the changes do have to do with compensation, and stay tuned for additional changes that I will cover that GAR has made mid-year to their contract package. And I would love to hear your comments. So please comment below. If you are enjoying this content, please share it with somebody who you think could benefit. And please subscribe to the channel, as I asked before, so you don't miss anything, and hit that thumbs up button to like it. Thank you guys so much. I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts on these changes. I am Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education. Bye. If you like that video, check out the one here. If you like the content on this entire channel, please click here to subscribe. I try to take even the most complicated of real estate situations and make them crystal clear. See what I did there? Real estate made crystal clear. Thank you guys so much for watching.